Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Damodar Radha Damodar Radhe. Jaya Nitai Gauranga Jaya Nitai Gauranga Nitai Gauranga Jaya Nitai Gauranga. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Damodar Radha Damodar Radhe Jaya Jaya Nitai Gaurango Jaya Nitai Gaurango Nitai Gaurango Jaya Nitai Gaurango Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Shri Radha Damodar ki, Shri Gaur Nitai ki, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye. Before reciting this Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very mean of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayana, unto Narayana Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nashta prayeshu abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in class on the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental song, is established as an irrevocable fact. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto. Echo is coming. Aho Raja Dharmasutas Chintayan Suradam Vadan Chintayan Suradam Vadham प्रकृतेनात्मना विप्रः स्नेहमोहवशं गतः अहो राजा धर्मसूता चिन्तयान् सुहृदं वधाम प्रकृतेनात्मना विप्रः स्नेहमोहमशं गतः अहो राजा धर्मसूता चिन्तयान् सुहृदं वधाम प्रकृतेनात्मना विप्रः स्नेहमोहवशं गतः अहो राजा धर्मसूता चिन्तयान् सुहृदं वधाम प्रकृतेनात्मना विप्रः स्नेहमोहवशं गतः अहो राजा धर्मसूता चिन्तयान् सुहृदं वदाम प्रकृतेनात्मना विप्रः स्नेहमोहवशं गतः अहो राजा धर्मसूता चिन्तयान् सुहृदं वधाम प्रकृतेनात्मना विप्रः स्नेहमोहवशं गतः अहो राजा धर्मसूता चिन्तयान् सुहृदं वदाम प्रकृतेनात्मना विप्रः स्नेहमोहवशं 47. Aha said, Raja, King Yudhishthira, Dharmasutaha, the son of Dharma, Yamaraja, Chintayan, thinking of, Suradham, of the friends, Vadham, killing, Prakritena, by material conception only, Atmana, by the self, Vipraha, O Brahmana, Sneha, affection, Moha, delusion, Vasam, carried away, being carried away by, Gataha, having gone. Translation by Prabhupada. King Yudhishthira, the son of Dharma, overwhelmed by the death of his friends, was aggrieved just like a common materialistic man. O sages, thus deluded by affection, he began to speak. All can repeat after me. King Yudhishthira, son of Dharma, overwhelmed by the death of his friend, was aggrieved just like a common materialistic man. O sages, thus deluded by affection, he began to speak. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. King Yudhishthira, though he was not accepted to become aggrieved like a common man, became deluded by worldly affection by the will of the Lord, just as Arjuna was apparently deluded. A common man who sees knows well that the living entity is neither the body nor the mind, but he is transcendental to the material conception of life. The common man thinks of violence and non-violence in terms of the body, but that is a kind of delusion. Everyone is duty bound according to one's occupational duties. A Kshatriya is bound to fight for the right cause. regardless of the opposite party. In such discharge of duty, one should not be disturbed by annihilation of the material body, which is only an external dress of the living soul. All this was perfectly known to Maharaj Yudhishthira, but by the will of the Lord, he became just like a common man, because there was another great idea behind this delusion. The king would be instructed by Bhishma as Arjuna was instructed by the Lord himself. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namini Aste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyatya Deshatarini Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So in this verse, one second, I'll just join this Zoom. So in this verse, Aho Raja Dharma Sutas. So here, Suta Goswami is addressing all the sages. He's describing how Yudhishthira was aggrieved. Now, how did he express this, and in what way he was defining that? Just like he was overwhelmed by, just like a common man. So King Yudhishthira, here it is referred to as Dharma Suta. Dharma Suta is the king of son of Yamaraj, who deals with the accounting of all pious and impious activities of living entities. He was overwhelmed by the death of his friend Chintayan Suradam Vadan. So here the word Prakritena Atmana is referring to the bodily conception of life. Just like a common man, if suppose my own relatives, someone dies, I'm fully aggrieved that, oh, my relative is dead. Yudhishthir Maharaj was fully aggrieved. And what is the result of that? Sneha Moha Vasam Gata. Thus, deluded by affection, he began to speak. So, and Purport Prabhupada very nicely explains that King Yudhishthira, though he was not expected to become aggrieved like a common man, became deluded by worldly affection by the will of the Lord, just as Arjuna was apparently deluded. So Arjuna was deluded at the battlefield of Kurukshetra before the war began. And this time, means that was the arrangement of the Lord. So that the important instruction, the Bhagavad Gita, the Bhagavad Gita came out. So this time, Krishna wanted Miss Krishna wanted furthermore instruction to be delivered to human beings or mankind, and Krishna chose Yudhishthira. And in fact, Prabhupada mentions that pure devotees of the Lord, they can never be deluded. We living entities get deluded by the material nature or three modes of material nature: passion, ignorance, and goodness. Whereas the pure devotees of the Lord, they are never deluded. They act on the will of the Supreme Lord, or by the will of the Supreme Lord, they get deluded so that important message can be delivered. So Krishna made an arrangement so that Yudhishthir Maharaj could get deluded men or those who died in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. In the previous verse, we saw like 64 crores people had died. And the cause for his cause was Yudhishthir Maharaj was thinking that I was that cause, because just to enthrone me, this type of massacre has happened. In fact, the previous verse where he was expressing that even Duryodhana was also ruling very nicely, but the time, Krishna has explained very nicely that because of time, in fact, Krishna also consoled Yudhishthir Maharaj. Even Vyasdev also tried to console him, but Yudhishthir Maharaj was not satisfied or not pacified with that. So it's like an important instruction, and Krishna, there's a further event which going to happen, like Bhishma going to depart his body, and Krishna wanted that Bhishma instructs Yudhishthir Maharaj about the importance of dharma and all. So here the word which Prabhupada explains in this purport is delusion, deluded. So sometimes we also, living entity, fall under trap of delusion. The cause may be attachment. In fact, in Bhagavad Gita, very nicely, this is very nicely explained in the second chapter. The second chapter of Bhagavad Gita is the content of Bhagavad Gita summarized. So at the last, there's a verse. Anyone remembers that verse? 2.62-63. Dhyayato vishayan pumsan sangasteshopajayate sangat sanjayate kamaha kamat krodo bijayate krodat bhavati sammoha sammohat smriti vipramaha smriti bhramshat buddhinasho buddhinashat pranashyati. This is the most powerful verse, and how Krishna brings that we living entities, how we fall in trap. Just like while contemplating the object of the senses, dhyayato vishayan pumsan, a person develops attachment. Just like if I see some object, some opposite sex or some, what happens? That impressions remains in my subconscious mind, and I start contemplating. Oh, I was interacting with her, I was talking with her, I was having. So there's an interaction, there's a dealing going on, and if I constantly contemplate on that, then there is a further, it's called attachment. I develop attachment for that, and once that attachment is developed, there is a desire to enjoy more, and if that desire is not fulfilled, then there is a anger, there's a lust which develops. Lust means I want at any cost. If I don't get, I'll be fully disturbed, morose, dissatisfied, and that lust further develops to anger. Prabhupada explains this attachment is very keen. In fact, in further lectures, in the same purport, Prabhupada is in lecture which is given in Los Angeles and Mayapur. Prabhupada explains this attachment. In fact, in this verse also it is said, sneha, affection. We are attached to our, first attachment starts with our body. I'm very attached to my body. I decorate it very nicely. I somehow protect it. I want to somehow make sure this body is not affected by external disease and all. So I will have I'll have some precautions. So I want to protect this body at any cost. Then further it expands. It expands to my family, my relatives. Then it goes further. It goes to society, my own society I want to take care. Then it goes to country. Then it goes to this whole, you want to do some philanthropic activities like taking care of other things. So this attachment is the root cause of this material world. The living entity is binding in this material world. The root cause is this attachment. And Krishna explains in this verse that how this attachment, if it is not fulfilled, it further develops to lust. And from lust, anger arises. In fact, we have seen many times this anger is so dangerous. We don't have control over that. When it comes, it vents out. And we then we regret, oh, I did, this was a great mistake. In fact, many prisoners, they have done many research and analysis where they have found out that moment they did that activity, and because of that, the consequences was that they are suffering in that jail. They are just contemplating, oh, why did I do that? That moment I would have stopped, then I would have been saved from greatest danger. And further, Prabhupada explains, Krodad bhavati sammoha, sammoha smriti vibramaha, smriti bramsha buddhinasho, buddhinasha pranashyati. From anger, delusion arises. Same. From delusion, bewilderment of memory. And when memory is bewildered, the intelligence is lost. Intelligence is lost. And when intelligence is lost, one falls down again into the material pool. So Krishna is bringing how we living entity come to this material world, and we are entrapped. Just like Prabhupada gives example of, there's a difference between us and the lower species. They also follow the same principle, like we also eat, sleep, mate and defend. Whereas the lower species, they also follow the same pattern. They also eat, sleep, mate and defend. But this human form of life, there is something special. This human life has some higher intelligence where we can understand these realities, that I am not meant for that. In fact, Prabhupada many times explains that my great grandfather or great great father, they also gone through the same process of eating, mating, defending. My grandfather, he's also going through that same process. My father, he's also going through the same process. So there should be some difference what I can do. So this human life is meant for achieving highest perfection. In fact, in Bhagavatam, second chapter, second canto, first chapter, it is explained that, I'll just show you that verse one. एतावान् सांख्य योगाभ्याम स्वधर्म परिनिष्ठया जन्म लाभ para pumsan ante narayana smriti. What is the goal of human life? Prabhupada says ante narayana smriti. At last, somehow or other, if you can remember Supreme Lord, that is the highest perfection which we can remember. The highest perfection of human life achieved either by complete knowledge of matter and spirit, by practice of mystic power, or by perfect discharge of occupational duty is to remember the personality of Godhead at the end of life. Prabhupada explains that this whole life we go through many experiences, or we just go through many activities, but at the last, if you don't remember Supreme Lord Krishna, then whole life is waste. You have to repeat in the whole same cycle of 84 lakh species. So there are 84 lakh species of life, and this human life is like a junction. Many times Prabhupada says it's a junction where you have an opportunity to go to higher dimensions, or you can break this cycle of birth, death, old age and disease. And the only process, in fact, Sukdev Goswami says, is by this Ante Narayana Smriti. Somehow or other, we can if we remember Supreme Lord, then this cycle of birth, death, old age and disease can be stopped. Further, one more verse Krishna brings out in the 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where he talks about this delusion. It's like Icha Dvesha Samutvena Dvanda Mohena Bharata Sarva Bhutani Sammoham Sarge Yanti Parantapa. O saint of Bharata, Arjuna, O conqueror of few, all living entities are born in delusion. So, by birth, we are born in delusion. And overcome by the dualities of desire and hate. So, we have two things in our mind, either to desire, either to hate. Desire in the sense, our mind process tries to accept things, reject things. So, that's a constant going on in our process. So in this purport also Prabhupada very nicely explains the real constitutional position of the living entity is that of subordination to the Supreme Lord, who is pure knowledge. When one is deluded into the separation from this pure knowledge, he becomes controlled by illusionary energy and cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Even in Chaitanya Charitamrita it is said, Maya Baddha Jivera Swata what is that? Maya Baddha Jivera Swata Nahi Krishna Gyan. Atheva Lord gives this all Vedic knowledge. That living entities, they don't have knowledge of the Supreme Absolute Truth. That's the reason Vedas, Puranas, they are all given by the Supreme Lord so that we can revive our lost constitutional position. One more was this Maya Japatiya Dare. That Nikatastha Maya Thare Japatiya Dare. So immediately when we turn our face towards material enjoyment, illusionary energy, immediately once when we turn our face against the Supreme Lord, Maya immediately catches us. In fact, one more verse is there by Prahlad Maharaj, very beautiful verse, where he says that what is the reason why we have been in this material world. So there he says the word, very important word was used is Tava Upekshitam. It's from Bhagavatam 7th canto, 9th chapter, 19th verse. Balasya neha sharanam pittaro narasimha nartasya chagadam udhanvati muchita naho taptasya tat pratavir hiya chestas tavad vibhu tanubrita tava upekshitanam. So here the word Tava Upekshitanam, Tava Upekshitanam, who are neglected by you and not accepted by you. So we are just turning our face towards Maya. We want to enjoy Maya. We are not interested in Krishna or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that's the reason we are suffering in this material world. In fact, we are suffering by threefold miseries like Adhyatmic Klesha, Adi Devi Klesha, Adi Bhautik Klesha. Problem due to our own body and mind, problems due to other living entities, and problem due to natural catastrophe or famine and all. So here, my Lord Narasimha Deva, O Supreme, because of bodily conception of life, embodied soul neglected and not cared for by you, and cannot do anything for their betterment. Whatever remedies they accept, although perhaps temporarily beneficial, are certainly impermanent. For example, a father and mother cannot protect their child. A physician and medicine cannot reveal a suffering patient, and a boat on an ocean cannot protect a drowning man. Yeah, this is true. When our child or our children goes to school, we cannot protect them. We have to depend on the Supreme Lord only while crossing the road. We cannot do anything. So here Prahlad Maharaj is saying that we have just neglected the Supreme Lord. That's the reason we are in this material world. And the amazing purport where Prabhupada very nicely explains the sequence. Through parental care, through remedies from different kinds of diseases, through means of protection on the water, in the air, and on the land, there is always an endeavor for relief from various kinds of suffering in the material world. But none of them are guaranteed measure for protection. They may be beneficial temporarily, but they afford no permanent benefit. Despite the presence of a father and mother, a child cannot be protected from accidental death, disease, and various other miseries. No one can help, including the parents. Ultimately, the shelter of the Lord, and one who takes the shelter of the Lord is protected. That is guaranteed. As the Lord says in the Bhagavad Gita, what is that verse Krishna says? Konteha prati janehi name bhakta pranashyati. O son of Kunti, declare it boldly that my devotees never perish. Therefore, unless one is protected by the mercy of the Lord, no remedial measure can act effectively. One should constantly depend fully on the causeless mercy of the Lord. Although, as a matter of routine duty, one must, of course, accept other remedial measure, no one can protect one who is neglected by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, the protection of the Lord is most important. In fact, to come out of delusion, Prabhupada always gives a system. Acharyas, they give process. Like whenever we get initiated, we chant 16 rounds, like in our japa meet. And we follow some regulative principles, 4 regulative principles, and we follow some do's and don'ts. In fact, in Bhagavatam also, when Parikshit Maharaj had given a notice, he got a notice because Parikshit Maharaj did not know. In fact, the samsara is like that only. In fact, in Mangalarti we sing samsara dava nala nida loka. So when there will be problem, we don't know. We cannot analyze, oh, tomorrow there will be problem, I'll defend in this way, I'll have this type of defense and protection. No. Suddenly some disease appears. There's no history. A person may be very good initially, but tomorrow he may be very sick. I may be very good looking now. Tomorrow some disease may come and my whole face, body structure may change. So there is no guarantee that I'll be protected in far, or there is no guarantee that I'll be living forever without any disease. So Parikshit Maharaj, he also got a notice, means by the will of the Lord or by the time factor. He got cursed by a Brahmana, a Shringi Brahmana. So he got 7 days notice and he was bewildered what to be done. He asked many sages, you have any solution? Do you have any solution? So he reached the bank of Yamuna, where he met many sages and he inquired from them what has to be done. What is the duty of a person who is about to die? This is applicable for all of us. It's not that it's applicable only for Parikshit Maharaj. It is applicable for all of us, because don't know when time going to come. So at that time Sukdev Goswami appears and he gives 3 processes. So Parikshit Maharaj was asking, what is my duty now? I'm going to die within 7 days. What I should do? What are my activities? What I should do? What I should hear? And so Sukdev Goswami recommends 3 processes. What are those? I'll just tell you. So he says, Shravanam, you have to hear. Kirtanam, you have to chant. And that last he says, one more he says, remembrance. Smaranam, Kirtanam, Vishnu. So you have to do hearing, chanting and remembering the Supreme Lord. And that is the best process which is defined in the age of Kali. In the age of Kali, the only process for attaining perfection is to hear, chant and remember the holy name of the Supreme Lord. So these 3 processes were recommended, and we have seen in our ISKCON and our Parampara. So this process is very high importance is given. So there is a morning Mangalarti, devotees, they see the transcendental form of the Lord. They start their day with that. In fact, 600 years back, even now, the great cities like Jaipur and all, the whole city comes to have the darshan of the Lord. So they start their day by having darshan of the Lord. And that's the most fortunate position, because to achieve the ultimate goal, Ante Narayana Smriti, requires some meditation or requires some sacrifice, some austerity. Like if you want to build your muscles, you have to go constantly to gym. You have to do repeatedly 1 hour of training or defined number of training is required constantly. with determination, not just I'll do 1 week once, I'll come for Mangalarti, or I'll come monthly once. No, you have to constantly come. In fact, you have to have some anxiety. Oh, I did not see the beautiful form of the Lord. Oh, that day is waste. There's no point. Because the Lord has manifested here, the Radha Damodar, with a all devotees have worked hard, very high. They have worked so hard. They have done services overnight just to establish this Radha Damodar temple. So now Lord has come, and Lord is expecting from all of us that we should have at least attendance daily, morning at least, daily one attendance. So this process Prabhupada has given very nicely. That morning we start our day by seeing the beautiful transcendental form of the Lord. And there's a beautiful song which we sing, Samsara Dava Nalalida Loka, which defines the reality of this material world. That don't know when the problem going to come. And there's only one shelter, and the shelter is of the pure devotees of the Lord. Vande Guru Shri Charana Aravinda. So Acharyas, they gave system where a jiva or a conditioned soul can go back home, back to Godhead. So like Mangala Arti, then we do japa, chanting. Chanting is the most powerful process. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So this also requires austerity. You have to hear each mantra, you have to pronounce each mantra. Mind should not go here and there. Prabhupada says like a parrot, you should not chant like a parrot. You should not chant like a parrot. Parrot also can chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. If you train him, train the parrot, it may chant 10 hours also constantly. But Prabhupada gives example that suppose a cat catches that parrot, it catches his neck. Hare Krishna will not come. It will come quack, 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 quack. So there's no point, right? So our chanting should not be that. So Acharyas, they have given a process. Bhagavatam, we hear Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam, like in that Bhagavatam, we hear this material world is like that. Outside, everyone praises, oh, you're great, you're great. You do small thing, they'll say, oh, you're the top, best. When you come to temple, they'll say, no, your done is wrong. Your done is wrong. Your done is wrong. So that's a fact. Outside is like Prabhu says, no, that camel glorifies the donkey, donkey glorifies the camel. That will not work, because we are in a very dangerous stage, like samsara dava naladida loka. There is a forest fire, and somehow you have to come out of that. That should be the goal. And to come out of that, Acharyas have given the process. This morning, sadhana, hearing, chanting. In Bhagavatam, 12th canto, 12th chapter, 55th verse. So there's a beautiful description. It's at the end, how Sukadeva Goswami concludes the Bhagavatam and how he glorifies this, the next age processes. Like he defines the process of the next age, Sankirtana. So here, Avismrita Krishna Padara Vindayo Shunoti Badrani cha Samtanoti Satvasya Shuddhim Paramatma Bhaktim Jnanam cha Vijnana Viraga Yuktam. Remembrance of Lord Krishna's lotus feet destroys everything inauspicious and awards the greatest good fortune. It purifies the heart and bestows devotion for the Supreme Soul, along with knowledge enriched with realization and renunciation. So the lotus feet of the Lord destroys everything inauspicious. In fact, if our mind is very disturbed, it is recommended process is to see the transcendental feet of the Lord, and it gets specified. Awards the greatest good fortune. In fact, Kumaras, when they saw the Tulsi bird and the lotus feet of the Lord, their even conception changed. They were immersed in impersonalist. They were thinking voidism and all. That's the permanent. That's the highest goal. But that same, all the Kumaras, their conception changed just by seeing the transcendental beauty means the form of the Lord, and especially they saw the tulsi leaves and the feet which were decorated with the birds, tulsi birds and tulsi leaves, and their conception also changed. So that's the most powerful effect of seeing the transcendental form of the Lord, especially the lotus feet of the Lord. Therefore, to remain beyond the reach of delusion and duality, one has to always remember and meditate on the beautiful form of Lord Krishna, who has a darkish complexion and is playing his flute. One must always remember and chant the holy name of Krishna. So here Prabhupada explains that we have to always meditate on the transcendental form of the Lord. Such a beautifully Lord is decorated. There's beautiful flowers. There's beautiful mala. So in fact, we should have like a competition that's asking what are dresses Lord has worn, what mala Lord has worn, what earring Lord has worn, what are the different types of earring, so that we can keep this impression within us. And once these impressions are there in our mind, the outside tribulation will not disturb us. So the process of coming out of from delusion is recommended by Sukdev Goswami is 3: by hearing, chanting and remembering the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If we go further, Prabhupada explains this, a man who sees, further in the purport, a man who sees knows well that the living entity is neither the body nor the mind, but is transcendental to the material conception of life. The common man thinks of violence and non-violence in terms of the body, but that is a kind of delusion. Everyone is duty bound according to one's occupational duty. So here Prabhupada is talking about the soul, the nature of the soul. So we living entities are spirit soul. We are not this body. In fact, Bhagavad Gita starts with that. Natve vaham jatu nasham natvam neme janadipa na chayam na bhavishyamaha sarve vayam athaparam. Never was a time I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings. So Krishna is very clearly defining that we are all eternal living entities. In fact, there's a great scientist. Many times we have doubt, oh, really there is a soul? We may be working through material nature, right? So some scientists, they say there is a chemical in our body which is activating. When we die, that chemicals gets vanquished, or that chemical's potency is lost. But here there is a great heart surgeon, Canadian heart surgeon. You have heard that pacemaker? There is a tube which they insert in the arteries so that it can the blockage is removed. So this scientist had invented this the pacemaker device in the year 90s. So and Prabhupada writes a letter to him. So a heart surgeon wants to know what a soul is. In fact, this article appears in Science of Self-Realization. There's a first chapter at the end, Soul Research. There's a topic. So a world famous Canadian heart surgeon says he believes the body has a soul which departs at death, and theologians thought to try to find out more about it. So there's a conference which goes on, and he brings out this point. Dr. Wilfred G. Bigelow, head of cardiovascular surgery unit at Toronto General Hospital, said that as a person who believes there is a soul, he thought the time had come to take the mystery out of this and find out what it is. So Prabhupada writes a letter to him because please accept my greeting. Recently I read an article in the Gazette by Ray Coley entitled Heart Surgeon Wants to Know What a Soul Is. And it was very interesting. Your comment shows great insight. So I thought to write to you on this matter. So Prabhupada writes to him. Perhaps you know that I am the founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So this is a letter written by Prabhupada in the year 1967. I have several temples in Canada, Montreal, Toronto, Hamilton. This Krishna consciousness movement is specifically meant to teach everyone soul has its original spiritual position. Undoubtedly, the soul is present in the heart of the living entity. So Prabhupada is defining where the soul is present. It is present in the heart of the every living entity. and it is the source of all energies for maintaining the body. So this Atma is the source of maintaining this body. This is a powerhouse of energy. The energy of the soul is spread all over the body, and this is known as consciousness. So Prabhupada explains this soul energy is spread all over the body, and that is called consciousness. Just like if we pinch, we'll feel pain. If you pinch a dead body, it will not react. There's no pain in that. Since this consciousness spread the energy of the soul all over the body, one can feel pain and pleasure in any part of the body. The soul is individual and is transmigrating from one body to another, just as persons transmigrate from boyhood to childhood, from childhood to youth, from youth to old age. So Prabhupada is very nicely defining the Bhagavad Gita, how there is verses like Denosmin yata dehe komaram yonam jara tata dehantara prapti dhirastartanamuyate. Then the change is called death takes place. When we change to a new body, just as we change our old dress to new dress, this is called transmigration of the soul. When a soul wants to enjoy this material world, forgetting his real home in the spiritual world, he takes this life of struggle, hard struggle for existence. This is unnatural life of repeated birth, death, disease and old age, and can be stopped when his consciousness is dovetailed with the supreme consciousness of God. That is the basic principle of our Krishna consciousness movement. And Prabhupada is preaching that how this soul, which is transmigrating from one body to another, this process can be stopped. And the process is taking to Krishna consciousness. The process is chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So here Prabhupada very nicely explains about the soul, how it transmigrates from one body to another. In fact, Prabhupada gives that the same anecdote that Ante Narayana Smriti. If we have the thought of enjoying this material world, it is sure that next life will be the same. In Bhagavatam, many stories are there, like Puranjana. At the last end of his life, he was just thinking of his wife. The next life, he turned to woman. So that's the nature of this material world. So Acharyas who have given this process, you have to always think of the Lord. Satatam is Nityasa, always. Satatam with like Satatam Kirtayanto Mam Yatantascha Dhradavata. So with great determination, somehow or other, we should have the impression of Radha Damodar in our mind, always. And if suppose suddenly some event happens, you'll chant Hare Krishna, or you'll just remember the Lord. Further, in the purport, Prabhupada explains, everyone is duty bound according to one's occupational duties. A Kshatriya is bound to fight for the right cause, regardless of the opposite party. So, at last, Prabhupada explains in the purport that Kshatriya, everyone has his duties. Like Varnashrama, there are duties which has to be performed. Like a Kshatriya's duty is to do administration, fight, or he has to maintain all his kingsmen, all his what they call it as praja or his subjects. Those days, kings used to make sure that everyone is following their regulative principles. They are doing their duties very nicely according to their religion or faith. So every varna has a duty. Like Brahmana, his duty is to read scriptures. He has to do yagna, dana, pratigna. It's like he has to do rituals like sacrifice. He has to do penances, austerities. Like Vaishya, they have one duty, like they have to do business, they have to do banking. So every varna has a particular duty which has to be followed. In fact, they say that this is like a caste system, but no. Even modern days also, it is divided into systems. Like there is a administrative class, like some big people, like big ministers, they act as an administrator. There are Kshatriyas, like the warriors, they go in the war field and they fight. There are some classes of people who are like businessmen, they do business, they do trade. And there are some classes like Shudras or the laborer, they work in the companies or they work in the factories. So this division is same, because this is done by Krishna. Chaturmarnya Maya system, Guna Karma Vibhagasha. So it's according to Guna and Karma. It's not, it's a caste system. No, it's not like that. So at last he says, in such discharge of duty, one should not be disturbed by annihilation of material body, which is only an external dress of the living soul. All this was perfectly known to Maharaj Yudhishthira, but by the will of the Lord, he became just like a common man, because there was another great idea beyond this delusion. The king would be instructed by Bhishma as Arjuna was instructed by Lord himself. So this all events are happening because of the will of the Supreme Lord. And Lord wants his devotees to be glorified. Lord wants Bhishma to instruct all the mass of people. And the instrument was used Yudhishthira. The Yudhishthira became bewildered. He was overwhelmed by affection. Pure devotees, they don't get they don't get deluded by external energies, Maya, but by the will of the Lord, they become deluded. And the purpose for that is instructing all the humankind. So in further verses, you'll find that how Bhishma going to instruct Yudhishthira Maharaj about the dharma and all. So at conclusion, we talked about delusion. We talked about 2 verses from Bhagavad Gita, which explains how the living entity falls in the trap of delusion. It says, while contemplating the object of the senses, a person develops attachment. From attachment, lust develops, and from lust, anger arises. And from anger, he falls in delusion. Delusion arises. And from delusion, bewilderment of memory. And when memory is bewildered, the intelligence is lost. And when intelligence is lost, one falls down again to this material pool. So we spoke about that, and we spoke about desire and hate. The living entity has these 2 faculties, desire and hate. We desire, means the mind has always accepting and rejecting. And due to this, we become delusioned. And further, we talked about how this verse from Bhagavatam, how to come out of this trap of desire, illusion and all. We talked, there are 3 processes. One is hearing, chanting and remembering. By these 3 processes, we can come out of this delusion, the trap. And we heard that remembering the lotus feet of the Lord is the best process. Everything inauspicious is vanquished, or we get the highest fortune, or our heart is purified by just seeing the transcendental form of the Lord. And we talked about the samsara dava was, this material world is like a forest fire, and the best process is to take the shelter of the pure devotees, and through that we can come out of this delusion. And further Prabhupada explains about the soul. We talked about the soul, how the soul is eternal, and there's a beautiful article which Prabhupada writes about how the soul transmigrates from one body to another. And at last, in the purport, Prabhupada explains that everyone is duty bound according to Varna in ashrama. One should not be disturbed by the annihilation of the material body, which is only an external dress of the living soul. All this was perfectly known to Yudhishthira, but by the will of the Lord, he became just like a common man, because there was another great idea. So this is important. There was another great idea behind this illusion. The king would be instructed by Bhishma as Arjuna was instructed by Lord himself. So with this, I'll stop. Any questions or something? No questions, and then we'll stop. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So there will be a meeting at 9:30 about the festival, upcoming festival.